Украины. Сегодня эта партия войны потеряла сон, всячески стараясь подорвать итоги и понимания, достигнутые в ходе встречи президентов России и США на Аляске месяц назад. Закатывает истерики, в том числе и в этом зале, в связи с бездоказательными утверждениями то о залете в Польшу якобы российских беспилотников, то о якобы пролете над Эстонией российских истребителей. Подобная промывка мозгов и зомбирование населения, стремление повесить на Россию свои недоработки и ошибки и острейшие экономические и социальные проблемы, с которыми столкнулись европейские общества в результате собственных непродуманных санкционных мер, сравнимы разве что с обработкой немецких и итальянских обывателей накануне Второй мировой войны. А потом все эти манипуляторы, получив очередной горький урок истории, будут разводить руками и утверждать, что не осознавали последствий своих действий. Обнадеживает, что не все в Европе готовы следовать этим губительным путем. И появляется все больше политических сил и лидеров, которые отвергают войну и конфронтацию в Европе и агитируют за развитие взаимовыгодных и равноправных отношений с Россией. Мы выступали за такой сценарий с самого начала. Господин председатель, контуры будущего мира на Украине нам всем понятны. Как очевидно и то, что представления киевского режима о том, как он мог бы выглядеть, не имеют никакого отношения к реальности и лишь обрекают новые тысячи не желающих отправляться на фронт украинских граждан на бессмысленную гибель. Только вчера в эфире одного из украинских каналов один из тамошних пропагандистов посетовал, что у украинцев на улицах отлавливают много, но они, цитирую, быстро заканчиваются. В этом циничном заявлении вся суть киевского режима. Вы подписываетесь вместе с ним над подобной незавидной участью оставшихся в живых граждан Украины? Если да, то нам не о чем с вами разговаривать. Если же вам они не безразличны, мы ждем вашей поддержки и искренней работы вместе с теми, кто пытается нащупать контуры реалистичного, долгосрочного и устойчивого мира, который остановил бы эту войну, начатую преступной киевской кликой в 2014 году. Мы не отказываемся ни от каких переговорных форматов, но выступаем исключительно за серьезный, субстантивный и незашоренный разговор. Не отказываемся мы и от переговоров с Украиной, несмотря на крайне сомнительную, мягко говоря, легитимность ее нынешних властей. Оптимальный формат для этого уже найден. Это переговорная площадка в Стамбуле. Обо всем остальном можно будет говорить только после того, как там будут достигнуты значимые экспертные наработки. Пока до этого еще, к сожалению, далеко. Господин председатель, в завершении хотел бы напомнить о пророческих словах, произнесенных на полях недели высокого уровня Генассамблеи 2 года назад польским президентом Анджеем Дудой. Цитирую: «Украина, как утопленник, тянет нас всех на дно». Конец цитаты. Сегодня подобными утопленниками стали уже очень многие из тех, кто выступил в этом зале. Если вас устраивает такая бесславная участь, можете ничего не делать и продолжать в том же духе. Если же нет, то работы предстоит много. Мы к ней были и есть готовы. Теперь ваш черед сделать этот выбор. Благодарю за внимание.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for the statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Petr Pavel, President of the Czech Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, it is an honor to address again the Security Council, and I thank the Korean Presidency for this opportunity. The Czech Republic is proud to be among the founding nations of this esteemed organization and remains fully committed to upholding the Charter and the rules-based international order. For more than 11 years, these principles have been under direct assault by Russia's ongoing aggression against Ukraine, which continues to suffer daily attacks against civilians, infrastructure, and even foreign diplomatic mission. Russia, for everyone to see, does not seek a peace. Let me state it loud and clear that Russia continues to violate basic principles of the UN Charter, territorial integrity and national sovereignty through its naked attempt to land grab and expansion of sphere of influence. The recent land swap proposals and continued military escalation highlight its disregard for peace and international law. While Russia pretends readiness for dialogue and negotiating process, it systematically breaches the very basic principles of peaceful coexistence among the nations and continues to play for time. And it will continue to do so for as long as the international community allows it. We condemn in the strongest terms possible the recent incursion of Russian drones into Polish airspace. And it was not an isolated incident. It forms part of Russia's deliberate strategy to intimidate its neighbors and test the limits of international law. Czechia stands in full solidarity with Poland, Estonia or Romania and commends their swift and decisive defensive response in the face of this blatant act of aggression. After many years of war, Ukrainians are the ones who want peace in their country the most. Therefore, Ukraine must be a key actor at the peace talks. Any peace agreement must be based on international law, including the UN Charter, and be subject to Ukraine's consent. The aggressor must not be rewarded for unlawful use of force. Accountability and full reparations for the damage caused are essential for a just and lasting peace. Ladies and gentlemen, there can be no doubt Russia's aggressive behavior cannot be appeased. It must be faced with strength and a resolute global response. We call on all members of the international community, and in particular on China, to assume their responsibility and stop enabling this divisive war of aggression, which risks escalating further and undermining global peace. Thank you for your attention.
Thank His Excellency Mr. Pavel for the statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Petr Pellegrini, President of the Slovak Republic.
Mr. President, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, first I want to thank the Republic of Korea for putting Ukraine on the agenda of this week's Security Council meeting. As a neighboring country, Slovakia is very concerned about the situation in Ukraine. Even though Slovakia and Republic of Korea are geographically distant, we both recognize the wide-ranging effects of this war. Its consequences extend beyond Ukraine and affect global peace, security and justice. 80 years ago, the UN Charter was created to prevent anyone from imposing their will on their sovereign neighbors or taking territory by force. We must stand firmly against such actions. We have given the Security Council the important responsibility to maintain peace and security and to uphold the Charter. Yet, the war in Ukraine has been ongoing for over 1,300 days. This is not just a European issue. It concerns us all. For a long time, we believed that meetings like this would not be necessary. We must consistently defend the UN Charter to ensure that such behavior does not happen again in the future, anywhere in the world. It is our duty to do everything we can to end this conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, as a country with a war right at our border, Slovakia sees the heavy toll it takes, civilian casualties, destruction of infrastructure, and violations of humanitarian law. This war has serious implications for my region and European security. Despite direct talks between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska, there has been no ceasefire or peace agreement. Although there were hopes for diplomatic talks and negotiations, the war continues. Russia refuses to stop fighting, forcing Ukraine to defend itself, its people, and its borders. Recently, there have been troubling incidents involving our allies. Just 2 weeks ago, Russian drones violated the airspace of Poland, our neighbor and ally. I want to express my strong support and solidarity with Poland, as well as with Estonia and Romania. An open door to negotiations should not be seen as a weakness or a call for more violence. It is not surprising that measures are being taken in response to threats to our shared security. Slovakia has consistently called for a quick and peaceful resolution to the war in Ukraine, including direct talks with Ukraine, the country most affected. We are ready to help and support guarantees for a lasting peace that aligns with the UN Charter and resolutions. President Trump has tried to step up and to move from discussions to actions, and he is still trying. The whole international community should continue to pursue peace resolutions to the war in 3 points. First, end of fighting. Second, mediated negotiations between Ukraine and Russia for a peace agreement. And 3, security guarantees for Ukraine, those that would sustain the cause of peace in Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency Mr. Pellegrini, for the statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Alexandra, President of the Republic of Finland.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm addressing the Security Council on behalf of the Nordic states, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, Denmark, and Finland. And I'm probably given the honor to do this because Finland shares a 1,340-kilometer border with Russia. Now, the Security Council has had Ukraine on its agenda for the last 11 years, with a few results on paper and even less on the ground. At the same time, it's quite clear that the General Assembly has overwhelmingly, on several occasions, condemned the aggression of Russia. The Council was entrusted with the primary responsibility to maintain international peace and security, and I think it's quite safe to say that we have failed in that. Ordinary Ukrainian civilians, and actually Russians as well, are paying a high price for this. Now, quite often I hear words that we need to eradicate the root cause of this war. The root cause is very simple. And the root cause is that Russia is not abiding by this, the UN Charter. It's really as simple as that. It is trying to violate the independence, the sovereignty, and the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Now, the UN Charter lays out the principles that underpin multilateralism. These principles, in my mind, are universal. Every country has taken a sovereign decision to uphold them when joining the UN. They are the minimum common rules at the core of the whole international system. We heard that in a speech from the Secretary General today, and we heard it from the President of the General Assembly. Now, the prohibition of the use of force, sovereign equality, and territorial integrity are fundamental to our coexistence. These rules are violated daily by the Russian Federation in Ukraine. Russia's war of aggression violates the very essence of who we are. It violates the very essence of the UN Charter. If we allow borders to be changed by the use of force, it will set a precedent with global implications. And I look around the room here today, I think most of us have had the experience throughout our history of war as a means of expansion. We've either been the victims thereof or we've been the aggressor. And I always felt that after 1945, we should have all learned our lesson. And many of us probably believed that after 1989, that lesson had been learned and we'd be moving towards some kind of eternal peace. But the truth is that when we don't nurture the international institutions that are the foundations of the peace, like the United Nations, we fail. I think a just peace is in our shared interests, and the solution is quite simple. It's in 2 phases. The first phase is a ceasefire. Ukraine has accepted it. The United States has proposed it. Europe supports it, but there's only one country that doesn't want a ceasefire, and that is Russia. And the second phase is very simple. You go into peace negotiations. And peace negotiations can last a long time, but they are indeed the only way we can get out of this. It's in our interest to ensure that the peace is sustainable and without a relapse. President Zelensky has repeatedly called for a ceasefire and high-level negotiations, and Moscow's response has been more missiles and drones. I think the message to my Russian colleagues around this table is it's time to talk about peace. There are too many people dying as a cause of this conflict. I personally think that today could be a game changer for many reasons. One of them was President Trump's post on Truth Social, which I didn't think left any space for interpretation. It was a clear message that it's time to end this war. And I think Secretary Rubio noted that President Trump is running out of patience. Now, of course, Russia is not operating alone, so we urge all states directly or indirectly supporting the invasion to stop. We live in an era with increasing geopolitical tension and hardening rhetoric in international relations. I think we need to be clear. Might does not make right. Borders cannot be moved by force. Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, Crimea, and Sevastopol are Ukrainian. Membership in this council comes with power, but it also comes with responsibility. Please use that power to stop the killing and pave the way for a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, for the sake of all of us. And let me finish by quoting my mentor, President Martti Ahtisaari, who was a big friend of the United Nations and received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2008. He said that what humans begin, they can also end. Please end this war. Thank you very much.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Stubb for the statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Alar Karis, President of the Republic of Estonia.
President of the Security Council, Excellencies, I speak on behalf of Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and my own country, Estonia. We thank the Presidency for convening us at this crucial moment for international peace and security. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine constitutes one of the gravest breaches of international law and the UN Charter since its adoption 80 years ago. Despite repeated calls by the General Assembly to stop the aggression, Russia continues its brutal assault on the Ukrainian nation, which began with the illegal occupation of annexation of Crimea in 2014 and continued with a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. This is totally incompatible not only with the status and responsibilities of a permanent member of the Security Council, but also with those of any UN member state. The scale of human tragedy Russia has inflicted in Ukraine is unimaginable. Millions of homes have been destroyed and families torn apart. Tens of thousands of children have been abducted and deported to Russia, subjugated through so-called re-educational programs with their roots and identity are systematically erased. We continue to call on Russia to grant full access for the UN and independent monitors to the occupied territories, to the prisoner of war camps in Russia, and to the areas under occupation. Russia must return the deported children. Russia must release all civilian detainees. In response to the recent peace effort by the United States, Russia has only intensified its campaign of terror against Ukrainians. Russia has not held back even from targeting and damaging diplomatic facilities in clear violation of the Vienna Convention. The recent violations of Estonian, Polish and Romanian airspace by Russia are yet another escalation and a stark reminder that Russia's aggression threatens not only Ukraine, but the security of the entire region. On Monday, the Emergency Security Council meeting was convened to discuss the grave violation of Estonia's territorial integrity by Russian armed fighter jets. Allow me to thank all 50-plus countries who called out Russia's action as dangerous, reckless, and in violation of international law. President, Russia is not interested in peace and security, neither in Ukraine nor in Europe. In March 2025, President Zelensky agreed to a 30-day ceasefire proposal. That was 6 months ago. Russia, on the other hand, has shown no intention of agreeing to a ceasefire, let alone a lasting peace. Russia's objective remains unchanged: subjugation of all the Ukraine and the reshaping of European security order to satisfy Russia's own neo-colonial and imperial ambitions. The only viable way forward towards a ceasefire and ultimately towards lasting peace in Ukraine is to collectively increase international pressure to force Russia to just and lasting peace in Ukraine. Ukrainians have courageously defended not only the country, but the core principles enshrined in UN Charter: sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. These principles are non-negotiable and cannot be compromised, as they form the very foundation of international law-based multilateral system. The Baltic states' message is clear. Russia and its leadership must be held accountable for the crime of aggression, for war crimes and crimes against humanity. There can be no lasting peace without accountability. Without accountability, there can be no justice. And without justice, there cannot be lasting peace. Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. In accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter, Ukraine has the inherent right to defend itself against Russia's armed aggression. Defending Ukraine's freedom means for us defending the sovereign equality of all member states, large and small, the core principles of which the United Nations was founded. We call on the Security Council to act. The cost of inaction is borne not only by Ukraine, but by the credibility of the international community as a whole. We urge all UN member states to increase pressure on Russia by strengthening sanctions or providing greater political, military and humanitarian support to Ukraine. Impunity, appeasement and further concessions would only embolden the aggressor and would lead to new crimes and escalation by Russia. Therefore, it remains our common duty to support Ukraine in its legitimate pursuit of comprehensive, just and lasting peace, a peace rooted firmly in international law. I thank you.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Karas for the statement, and I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Antonio Costa, President of the European Council.
Mr. President, first of all, I would like to thank South Korea Presidency to convey this meeting. Ukraine is fighting for the very principles of the United Nations Charter: sovereignty, territorial integrity, the respect of the international recognized borders, the right to choose its own destiny. We cannot rewrite history. This war started with an unjustified and illegal attack by Russia. There is the only one root cause to this war: Russia's refusal to accept Ukraine's right to choose its own future. Peace in Ukraine is not just Ukraine's interest is not just Europe's interest. It is the interest of the global community. If we accept Russia's invasion of Ukraine, no country will ever be safe. The pursuit of peace must be the top priority of the global community. The European Union will continue to work to end this war of aggression and to support Ukraine in every way. A ceasefire, to which Ukraine has already agreed to, is the first step. And I call on Russia, a permanent member of this Security Council, to agree to come to the negotiation table, to stop the killings, to stop the destruction, to stop threatening the neighboring countries. I call on the international community to be actively engaged on peace efforts in full respect of the United Nations Charter. The European Union supports President Trump's efforts for peace, and I would like to see China, also a permanent member of the Security Council, contribute towards a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, to achieve an end to the aggression, the European Union will continue to apply pressure on Russia through sanctions. To ensure a lasting peace, the European Union, in the context of the coalition of the willing, is ready to contribute with concrete security guarantees to Ukraine and to fulfill the aspirations of Ukraine people. We will continue to support Ukraine on its path to full membership in the European Union. Mr. President, the time for peace, it's now, and it is now time for Russia to stop this aggression. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Costa for the statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Pedro Sanchez Perez Castellón, President of the Government of Spain.
Excelencias, distinguidos colegas, señoras y señores, agradezco a la presidencia coreana haber convocado esta sesión sobre Ucrania, porque una de las prioridades del Consejo de Seguridad tiene que ser que la paz llegue a Ucrania de una vez por todas. Y lamentablemente, tras 3 años y medio de conflicto, seguimos atrapados en la misma encrucijada, sin avances significativos hacia una solución duradera. Ya se ha dicho en reiteradas ocasiones, pero creo que es importante no olvidarlo, la agresión rusa contra Ucrania constituye una violación inaceptable del derecho internacional y de los valores compartidos por el conjunto de la comunidad internacional. Esta agresión es especialmente alarmante porque ha sido perpetrada por un miembro permanente de esta sala, del Consejo de Seguridad de Naciones Unidas, el órgano encargado, supuestamente, de velar por la paz y por la estabilidad global. Si permitimos que la fuerza y la coacción sustituyan al diálogo y al respeto mutuo entre naciones, estaremos sentando un peligroso precedente que pondrá en riesgo la estabilidad de las fronteras y también del orden internacional, especialmente en Europa, pero también en otras regiones del mundo. Permítame subrayar con la mayor claridad que cualquier acuerdo de paz que se alcance debe estar firmemente anclado en el respeto al derecho internacional y a la Carta de Naciones Unidas. Por tanto, no se pueden aceptar soluciones que impliquen la legitimación de la violencia o la alteración por la fuerza de las fronteras reconocidas internacionalmente. Si renunciamos a estos principios, no solo estaremos traicionando la confianza de los pueblos que representamos, sino que estaremos abriendo la puerta a nuevas crisis y a conflictos en el futuro. En el caso de mi país, de España, desde el primer día hemos sido una firme defensora de la libertad y la seguridad de Ucrania. Formamos parte de la coalición de voluntarios, hemos enviado miles de millones de euros a Kiev en ayuda militar, también humanitaria. Hemos entrenado a más de 8.000 soldados ucranianos y hemos acogido a más de 240.000 desplazados ucranianos en nuestro país. Y Ucrania ha demostrado, además, miembros del Consejo de Seguridad, en reiteradas ocasiones su disposición a comprometerse con un alto el fuego y a buscar una solución negociada a esta guerra. Sin embargo, la respuesta del presidente de la Federación Rusa, de Putin, ha sido una y otra vez la escalada de la violencia, el lanzamiento de nuevos ataques, ignorando el llamamiento de la comunidad internacional y agravando el sufrimiento de una población, la población civil, inocente. Los recientes bombardeos dirigidos deliberadamente contra la población civil en Ucrania, las infraestructuras esenciales como hospitales, escuelas, redes eléctricas, redes de suministro de agua, son una prueba clara de que Rusia no tiene en este momento voluntad alguna de llegar a la paz con Ucrania. Las violaciones del espacio aéreo europeo de estos últimos días son absolutamente inaceptables y la comunidad internacional debe actuar con determinación y con unidad, utilizando todos los instrumentos políticos que tenemos a nuestro alcance, los diplomáticos, los humanitarios, para poner fin a esta tragedia y sentar las bases de una solución sostenible. Durante esta semana de alto nivel, reafirmemos juntos nuestro compromiso con la paz, con la justicia y el respeto al derecho internacional, porque no podemos permitir que la indiferencia o el cansancio nos paralicen. Debemos recordar que la defensa de la legalidad internacional, de los derechos humanos, repito, de los derechos humanos, es una responsabilidad compartida y que solo a través de la solidaridad y la cooperación podremos garantizar un futuro seguro y digno a las generaciones venideras. Muchas gracias.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Sánchez Perez Castellón for the statement. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Rick Frieden, Prime Minister of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the Benelux countries, Belgium, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and my own country, Luxembourg. I thank the colleagues, Prime Ministers of Belgium and the Netherlands, to be here with me to underline the importance we as Benelux countries attach to the peace and security in Ukraine. For over 3 years now, we and the overwhelming majority of United Nations member states have been calling on Russia to end its illegal war of aggression against Ukraine. Russia must stop this war immediately, as already stated forcefully also by the International Court of Justice in March 2022. In this war, Russia is the aggressor, and Ukraine has a legitimate right to defend itself in line with Article 51 of our UN Charter. Last February, this Council adopted a resolution imploring a swift end to the conflict and urging a lasting peace between Ukraine and Russia. As a permanent member of this Council, Russia has a special responsibility to uphold the UN Charter, international law, and global stability. In reality, Russia is challenging the very principles of the United Nations. Therefore, Russia's aggression not only undermines Ukraine's security and Europe's security as a whole, it affects the entire international community. Mr. President, for years, the people of Ukraine have bravely stood up against daily indiscriminate bombings and killings by Russia's armed forces. Countless civilians have died. Entire neighborhoods and cities have been destroyed. Thousands of Ukrainian children have been abducted. These kids must be brought back immediately. The Benelux countries reiterate their strongest possible condemnation of this war started by President Putin. Our message to Russia remains clear and simple. Stop attacking Ukraine and withdraw your troops. The Benelux countries underline their unwavering support for Ukraine. We remain steadfast in our support for comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine, in line with our Charter. Any peace must be just, not imposed, not partial, and not forgetting the victims and the suffering endured. There must be accountability for all the crimes committed. We welcome the peace efforts led by President Trump. Despite intense diplomacy by the United States, Ukraine, the European Union, and other partners, however, there are no signs that Russia's goal of subjugating Ukraine has changed. On the contrary, while Ukraine has repeatedly stated its readiness for an immediate ceasefire and for meaningful peace negotiations, Russia keeps targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure. Russia's reckless behavior was evident in the last 2 weeks when it repeatedly violated NATO airspace. These dangerous provocations, which are violating international law, demonstrate that if Russia's aggression remains unchecked, it is bound to repeat itself and expand. Mr. President, the relentless war of aggression waged by the Russian Federation has only strengthened our resolve. With our allies and partners, the Benelux countries will continue to pursue coordinated political, military, humanitarian and financial support to Ukraine in order to bolster its efforts to defend itself, rebuild the country and pursue a just peace. To our Ukrainian friends, we reiterate our unwavering commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders, and our full solidarity with the brave people of Ukraine in their fight for freedom. And to Russia, we say, it's time to stop this war, for peace, for your children and ours. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Frieden for the statement. And I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Antonio Tajani, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Republic of Italy.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The Italian goal is very clear: a just and lasting peace. Our priority is the respect of the international law. We stand, of course, with Ukraine, fighting to defend their freedom and sovereignty. This is a key priority at the United Nations, in the G7 and in the European Union. I want to make this point very clear. We are not at war with Russia. Our goal is to bring Russia to the negotiation table for a just peace. We are fully convinced that a path to peace is still possible. Like Pope Leo said, we cannot abandon the hope for peace. We fully support the efforts of President Trump to reach a negotiated and fair solution to the conflict. To this end, we urge Russia to increase its attack and follow up on the summit in Alaska. It is time to start direct negotiation with Ukraine. Italy strongly supports this political process. We all need to support it. This is the key to end this conflict. Je souhaite maintenant m'adresser directement à mes collègues des pays partenaires. Il est temps d'unir nos efforts en vue d'une paix juste. Vous trouvez toujours une oreille attentive à Rome. En même temps, nous espérons que la Russie pourra bientôt envoyer des signes concrets de coopération. Dans ce contexte, les récentes violations de l'espace aérien polonais, roumain et estonien sont inacceptables. Ce sont de mauvais signaux, mais nous devons éviter l'escalade. Nous restons préoccupés par la sécurité de la centrale nucléaire de Zaporijia. Nous devons continuer à soutenir les efforts du directeur général de l'AIEA, M. Grossi. Toute solution durable au conflit doit inclure de solides garanties de sécurité pour l'Ukraine. Il est également essentiel qu'aucune décision concernant l'Ukraine ne soit prise sans l'Ukraine. L'avenir de l'Ukraine est dans l'Union européenne. Italia está en primera línea en la reconstrucción de Ucrania. La Conferencia para la Recuperación de Ucrania que organizamos en Roma en julio recaudó más de 10.000 millones de euros. Desde Roma enviamos un mensaje al mundo. Creemos en el futuro de Ucrania, todos juntos. Seguiremos prestando especial atención al patrimonio cultural de Ucrania. Un ejemplo, Italia contribuirá a reconstruir los monumentos emblemáticos de Odessa. Lo haremos poniendo a disposición nuestras mejores excelencias. También debemos poner en el centro la dimensión humanitaria de la guerra. Este es un mensaje muy fuerte que me reafirmó personalmente el Papa Leone en un encuentro oficial hace pocas semanas. La paz significa también justicia. Debemos garantizar la rendición de cuentas de los responsables de los crímenes y la plena reparación para las víctimas. Debemos proteger a los niños ucranianos que deben volver a sus familias y a su patria sin más demoras. La liberación de los prisioneros de guerra, junto con el regreso de los niños ucranianos, son prioridades cruciales. Nosotros trabajamos con vosotros. Italia puede hacer todo lo que puede. Defendemos la soberanía de Ucrania y trabajamos por la paz. Trabajamos por un encuentro Ucrania y Rusia para concluir este encuentro con una paz durable. Gracias.
His Excellency Mr. Tajani for the statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.